Someone asked me how I can explain the full context of jokes, idea generation, aha moment, awakening, enlightenment, full context of it, that they are all related and based upon what I call the root of who we are, which is our heart and where all the creative activity has brought us onto this earth and to be alive as it is now. And obviously, that's what it is. What we see out in the mountain, the trees and the butterflies, flowers, bird, and us are alive due to the fact that whatever happens in the laws of the universe, we brought out to this earth. So I keep saying that's the miracle. We may not think it's miracle, and some may think they have a free will. But there's a constraint of that free will. Because you're thinking in your mind, and just like that Monkey King story, that he flew so many thousand miles, this is a story, and then found something sticking out of the cloud. And so he put a little sign saying that the Monkey King was here and came back. And he was proud that he could do it at his will to the Buddha. And Buddha showed him, are you talking about this hand? And here's your sign. So what it says is that whatever you think you can do and you actually do has limitation, because you cannot go beyond the laws of the universe, but you can think at your own will that you have a free will and do whatever you like. That's what I think is the illusion of human being, that we have a constraint. We need to have an open mind, not to be closed and definitive about what we think is right. So that's just the way I see it. And my awakening experience, for example, explains that when I tried to get out of my pain of sitting too long, I couldn't. But when I basically give up, the mind just gave up. Ego died. No free will that I could get out. I admitted, or at least I thought about the opening. The fact that I'm trying is into the wrong direction. So, as if my fist was in the bottle and trying to get the fist out of the bottle, I opened up my fist, and then I was free, liberated. So that's the connection to the heart from the brain. That's why I say use the brain, but not to be used. And for us to use the brain as needed, it has to reflect that we are connected to the root of who we are, laws of universe, that has the creative, infinite wisdom and compassion. Not just the explanation of how limited we are and how we can be enlightened and feel free, liberated. So Monkey King's story is to point the limitation, and my experience shows the limitation. And I talked about Edgar Mitchell's story up in Apollo 14, and he saw the sun, the moon, and the earth, and the universe, and he felt something much bigger than what he has thought on that little tiny speck of the planet Earth, fighting and doing this and that. So opening of the mind takes place when we don't think, but at all. Like I saw the tiger shark yesterday swimming, diving or spearfishing. When you have nothing to do, you don't think. Well, you can be fearful, but at the time, I only saw the shark passing by, only 5 meters away or so, about the length of the kayak. Big shark, impressive. As much as I felt the same when I saw the big great white shark in California, it was pretty much the same. There's nothing you can do, or you should do. If you're fearful, just like I was trying to get out of the long hours of sitting, if you try to run away, probably shark may notice it and the weakness in me. But if you let go, like seaweed floating, liberated, then you're melting into the nature. And I may have been eaten, but it's better than fearful and struggling. Actually, I know a case of a woman who got drowned because she was trying to escape from the current, pulled her into this channel, and all the bubbles was going around her, and she tried to escape, and she died. It happened in New Zealand, Great Barrier Island at the north. What's the name of the place? Pinnacle. And I heard the story, and I get into the same trap. I was trying to shoot a kingfish, and when I noticed I had the pole so strong, just going between the channel, and my boat was out there, and I was pulling out of, and then go through the channel. And in the channel, it's all everywhere, bubbles, beautiful. And I knew, okay, this is what happened, and she died because she was struggling. I was just observing, just like watching the shark. Lots of stories about the ocean, but again, the meditation, it's all connected. How you be the master of yourself, psychologically open, connected to the heart, because that's where you were born. So, going back to the story of the enlightenment awakening, but also laughing, idea generation, we need to go beyond the constraint. And I think Einstein, I may have posted videos of Einstein. Also, Charlie Munger I can think of, I have many videos. The context of how to describe the connection to the root and the idea, wisdom, compassion, and how it can be manifested is an experiential thing, but there's something you can talk, which is not easy because talk is cheap and you have to go through the experience of it. But unfortunate, that's the only way. Or you can just hit the guy and throw him into the pit or something. And some people go through sitting for a long time to be awakened. Bankei is one of those, and there are many others. Just sit still. Anyway, the root of who we are, the origin, how we are born, due to the creative power of nature that manifests for us to be alive. Even our brains not functioning, you still breathe again. But the funny thing about the breathing is that you can stop breathing at will, at your free will. Try it. But eventually you give up and breathe in and breathe out. Because there's that nature's way in our body programmed that we are to live by breathing. So whatever the constraint, including this lack of oxygen or lack of solution in your mind, whether it's a joke that you don't get it, or ideas, Einstein, he thought about riding the beam of light, imagination to go beyond, to experience the state of what you may be doing. Like my case, is it because I'm trying to escape I have the pain? At the time, I look at myself as if from different dimension. And that's what Edgar Mitchell talked about, the big view, whatever the term. Looking from the big perspective, not from that tiny planet and struggling and fighting, but look at the whole view of what this universe is. And he is pointing, why do you fight? That's wisdom and compassion that people kill each other. So his point was, why don't you go out of the space or the earth, experience how minuscule that human existence is. And as I mentioned, the same point that when I was 16 or 17, I read Pascal, Blaise Pascal, and I was in the pitch darkness because I couldn't get out of this thought that I'm such a little piece, tiny, tiny, tiny piece in this whole universe. And I couldn't do anything. I was in pitch darkness for a couple of days. But now, just like Edgar Mitchell, for whatever reason, you cannot actually explain it well, but the transcending that narrowness of our mind, that I have an ego, I can do something, I will do something, that's the whole purpose of why I have my brain. We are conditioned to live like that. Well, not all of us, but many of us. Some are much more compassionate and helping and selfless activities. But in my case, for example, I was admiring Thomas Alva Edison invention and all that. I went into engineering. I even went into nuclear power plant design, safety analysis, Fukushima, when I was in Toshiba and also in GE in 1970s. That plant that went into, or that plants caused that big accident. So that was one time, and then I thought, what's the point of doing it? I can maybe design 20 power plant, but is there something more about life? So I went to business, and I did consulting, empowerment, book writing, lectures, transforming of the company, the people, and into Zen and spirituality to go back to resolve that Pascal question. That's your life, what do you think? And then to Vipassana. So the context, the original point of this discussion, the context of the joke going beyond the paradox, idea generation beyond the constraint, wisdom, compassion beyond yourself and ego, dying of self, to connect to the root, the creative source of who we are. That's logical explanation, the whole context of how we may go beyond the boundary instead of the silo, specialized knowledge, or confined in the brain but not connected to the heart and the ego that we have. Other thing I recently posted was Diamond Sutra. The phrase there, Eno is the Zen monk who was enlightened when he heard this phrase, which said something like, abiding nowhere, my mind generates its course by itself, or something like that, pointing that mind is free, samadhi. So when the mind operates, it is to address something, but you are to detect if it's egocentric or not, automatically. Because you're listening to your heart, then you can judge and say no, but just focus, being in samadhi, very calm and quiet state to make the judgment and say no to many things that's unnecessary, but to live in the moment, utilizing the best of what we've got, not locally optimizing and silent and not having the bridge to your heart. So I may have repeated the same message for 15 minutes. But there is that liberated state that we can have fun, enjoy life, help each other, be creative, and grow, evolve, and do the best to live our life. That's, to me, is one way. May not be the full context of the points that this guy was asking me to answer. But I hope at least get the flavor of it, and to go beyond that mind barrier. There may be a need of such experience, like Edgar Mitchell or Eno or Picasso, who saw the picture, the flower that the Buddha picked up and smiled. It's connecting to the root of who you are. There are a bunch of people listening to or watching the Buddha picking up. That's the story goes in the Sutra, left 2,000 some years ago. And he was the only one to get the message. So that's what it is with words. If I say simply, it's about a calm and quiet mind, not obstructed to the brain, egocentric way. So no mind, no self, equanimous, and observe everything as it is about your own thought. Then the thought is like a cloud, may show up and go away, or have some enlightening ideas that come, including joy, or wisdom, compassion. So if you have that full context, the life will be different. You use the brain, not to be used. How depends on each person's background, talent, what he likes. And again, listening to your heart, there may be a way to find it. That's why I talked about Warren Buffett, Charlie Munger from the point of investment, that they have some awakened state. And Charlie Munger talk about invert. Don't think as you wish, but make sure that you don't go where you die. That makes sense. But if you're greedy, you die in investment. I'm going through it. Well, Picasso says painting is stronger than him. That makes him to do whatever he wants. So that's a connection, whether it's investment, painting, or anything you do. If you look at the children, being happy with limited resources, inventive, There's one example, once we have been like that. And then we plug in lots of things. You have to have money, the fame, and this and that. How you can be proud of, I have the free will. That's the game we play. But we don't have to. You can choose the game you play by connecting to heart. And I hope I explained something hopefully meaningful. Life continues, and I wish I can use better my brain to speak better. So there's a constraint, but I'll keep working on it by being sincere and truthful to see if I can live the way I imagine that is meaningful and good. So may all beings be happy.